All right, girls. So this program, I can only record 15 minutes at a time. And I don't have my laptop home with me. I'm doing this on my home computer, so bear with me here. But basically, I'm trying to pick up where we left off. I wanted you guys to really do chapter 13 over break, most of it, and I was just gonna update a couple of things. We did like half of this maybe in school. I think we got up to like maybe here to what we talked about, the Mexican-American War. So from there, I just want to go over a few things, and then I really want to start chapter 14. That was my plan today, to just tighten up 13 and see if there was any questions from what you guys had done over break, and then I was going to start the Civil War. So I'm still going to do that, but we're just going to have to do it this way. So these recordings can only be 15 minutes because I don't have the full version of this. This is just like a trial. So I'm going to do a couple recordings. I'm going to upload them to YouTube and put them as links on Canvas. I'll email you all of that and upload it today before 10 o'clock so you can do this. But basically, I'm going to go through this. I want you to watch these and listen, and then I'm going to have some kind of questions or some kind of follow-up thing to go with it. So check your email, if you probably already have if you're listening to this, but and that's what we're going to do to try and not lose time, because we really can't afford to do it. Okay, so the Wilmot Proviso, I think I might have mentioned this. This is in my notes where we kind of stopped, but one class might not be exact to the other. But basically, David Wilmot was a congressman from Pennsylvania who said he wanted to prohibit the spread of slavery into what we call the Mexican Cession land, all the land that we got from the Mexican-American War. The big thing is right now with these people, you're going to see politically, a lot of people are going to start to make their political decisions based on the movement of slavery westward. So even like the Free Soil Party is going to crop up during this time period, because they want that land to be free, hence the term free soil. Not that people get it for free, it's not a monetary thing, it's a slavery thing. Let's not spread this institution, the peculiar institution, further westward. It doesn't mean those folks are staunch abolitionists, really, but what it means is that they just don't want to see it spread any further. So again, girls, we call that the Mexican Cession. C-E-S-S-I-O-N means the land you got from seceded. They ceded it to us. Okay, so the Mexican Cession. Okay, so what ends up happening is it passes the House, but it doesn't pass the Senate. And why is this important? The Wilmot Proviso and a couple other things I'm going to talk about are important because it shows us that slavery was such an issue that it causes so many deadlocks in Congress. It's so polarizing, and it shows like partisanship, where people are so much voting on the side of their party, which a lot of times is regional during this time period. This is an example of sectionalism. You see everybody from the north is pushing. So here it says every northerner supported it and almost all southerners opposed it. So that's very polarizing, and it's the issue of slavery, and here it's the issue of spreading it further westward. So David Wilmot from Pennsylvania, of course, he doesn't want to see it spread any further, and you see it doesn't pass. The Wilmot Proviso does not pass, but we're going to talk about a couple things that don't pass, but we study them anyway because it shows the polarizing effect that slavery has on Congress. Okay. Okay, and this is just us spreading westward and all the states that are cropping up during this time and applying for statehood. Okay. All right, so how does this all end? I'm sorry this looks so weird, but this computer is, if I make it full screen, it cuts some of it off. So, okay, so the Compromise of 1850, and we know shockingly that it's going to be Henry Clay who's going to be the person who comes up with this idea, but also weighing in are Webster and Daniel Webster and John C. Calhoun. We call them the Immortal Trio. They seem to live forever. And to get past some of the stuff with the Mexican Cession, we come up with this Compromise of 1850. Okay. So you see the Missouri Compromise line there. We're going to talk too about the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which negates that. But right now it's like, okay, what to do with all the land from the Mexican cession is our question now. Okay, so here is Daniel Webster, who I told you is a lifelong politician, never is president, but he has a big impact, more so maybe than some presidents because he's around for so long. He had a lot of problems with debt, and I think he drank a lot, and had some issues, and he couldn't never really get in the position where he would win the presidency. However, he makes a lot of contributions. He's from Massachusetts, so he is not for slavery, but he is really for keeping the Union together. That's his big thing. Okay. All right. So the biggest bone of contention, I guess, with the Compromise of 1850 is the Fugitive Slave Law. The Fugitive Slave Law, there had been one previously, but this one that they put into the Compromise of 1850 is brutal, and the North hates it because they find it to be so intrusive, where white persons could get in trouble for harboring runaway slaves. You could be fined, you could be arrested. You had all these it's a big business. Slave catching becomes a big business, and you have all these people up in the North like hunting around for slaves, and people found it to be extremely intrusive. So that would be probably the biggest concession that the North made. A concession means when you give something up, you kind of give in. You concede, you say, fine, we'll do it. So the Fugitive Slave Law was the thing where the North was like, all right, fine. And Daniel Webster's point was, he thought the Fugitive Slave Law was terrible, but his point was, look, we got to compromise with these people. We got to give in. We got to say, if it's going to keep the Union together to have this compromise, we're going to do it. And that's what they're talking about. Okay. Slaves couldn't testify on their own behalf. It seems very undemocratic, is the thing, and very lacking of justice. So a lot of people who do not care for this Fugitive Slave Law. Okay, so then let's see. All right, so the immortal trio we said was Clay, Calhoun, and Webster. Remember them from the Bank Wars? They've been around, and that was a long time ago, right? That was 1828 or 1832. Calhoun with the Tariff of Abominations. We've seen all these guys. They've been around a long time, and they carry a lot of clout and weight in American politics during this time period. So people are going to kind of listen to them. But literally, they're all on death's door at this point. One of them has Daniel Webster, I think, from his hard life of living, a life of, he would drink a couple brandies and, eat not well and always in debt and kind of on edge. He is kind of on the end of his life. Calhoun, one of them has, I want to say, some lung ailment, and none of them are well. They all have some ailment of some type. John Calhoun writes something that he has to have somebody else read for him because he's so ill. Daniel Webster gives a really long speech called the 7th of March speech, because that's the date on which he gave it. So he goes on and on. So Henry Clay steps in with a bunch of compromises, and they all have a position. And when we talk about knowing somebody's point of view, I would always know these three guys' points of view because they are around for so long in American history. You're bound to get some kind of question on one or all of them. Okay, so Henry Clay, his position is always to pacify people and to make a compromise, and that's what he wants to do here. Calhoun is staunch in states' rights. Remember, he wanted the South Carolina to secede from the Union back when they had the Tariff of Abominations. With the nullification crisis, and he even has the idea at one point to even make a president from the North and a president from the South. Like, he really is for the South to have the right. So of course he's going to propose, everything in favor of the South. And then Webster really wants to keep the Union together. That's his big thing. And he says to the North, look, hey, I'm from Massachusetts. I don't like this stuff either, but we have to concede. We have to give in to them if it's the only way they're going to let us admit California is a free state and get all the things that we want out of this. So he's not for slavery at all, but he thinks that the graver sin would be for the country to fall apart. And some people who would criticize Webster, he actually had some critics up north, even though he was from there, saying that God was higher than the Constitution. So to Webster, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, but staunch abolitionists who are abolitionists because of religious reasons are saying, we answer to God, not to the Constitution. So that his point of view is that the Constitution trumps everything. And, you know, the founding fathers built this country, and we're not going to tear it apart over this issue of slavery. If we have to give in to the Southerners and let them keep it to stay together, let's do it. Okay. And girls, we're going to start talking about Lincoln soon. Abraham Lincoln was not like a bleeding heart abolitionist. People think that of him because certainly he does push the 13th Amendment through during the war, and he does abolish slavery, but he doesn't start as a young politician going around saying that. That was an unpopular thing to say. You would lose a lot of the country's votes if you were saying that. So he is politically savvy and says, you know, we just don't want to extend it any further, and we want to keep the Union together. Those are his priorities in the beginning. And we'll talk more about him, but just know that these guys, these three, so these three are on their deathbed, on death's door, literally, giving speeches about this stuff. This is how passionate they were about it. So what ends up happening is a compromise, and we'll talk about that. Another person we'll talk about too is Seward, who at this time is a senator of New York. He's going to be around for a long time too. He opposes this, and this is what I was saying. So he would be opposed to then Webster as well, saying we answer to God above all, and slavery's immoral. Okay, Zachary Taylor is the president at the time, and he was not really helpful with any of this stuff. But guess what? His term's almost up, and in comes he's the one who died. He ate something that they don't know what it was, but it was like a really hot day. And he ate, they made him ice cream, like ice milk, they used to call it, out of cherries and milk and ice. And they don't know if it was the cherries, the milk, or the ice. Something was contaminated with bacteria or something. And he got really, really sick and he died. So now comes in President Fillmore, and he's like, sure, I'll sign all those compromises. I don't care. And he came in and put through what we call the Compromise of 1850. So what's in red here, girls, are the conditions of the Compromise of 1850, which are really important. That's why they're in red. So California is admitted as a free state. California is a huge state. Oh, really? Sorry. So it's admitted as a free state. Now, at this point, New Mexico and Utah are just territories. They're not states yet. They're open to popular sovereignty. If we don't know what this means by now, we need to know. Popular sovereignty means you decide, you reign yourself. Remember, the word reign is in here. Okay, you're in charge. Popular meaning by the popular vote. So popular sovereignty is when people vote to decide on something. Okay, so the people in the territories of New Mexico and Utah are going to vote for whether or not they want to have slavery. Now, we see that this is problematic with the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Okay, and we'll come back to this and talk about it. But for right now, Compromise of 1850, that's what they're doing with New Mexico and Utah. The slave trade, keyword trade, was outlawed in the District of Columbia, not the practice of slavery itself. This is, again, the biggest problem here is the stricter fugitive slave law, because it's the biggest problem to the North. They find it very annoying. They don't like it. They find it to be intrusive and just downright mean with all the slave hunting that's going on. And a second era of good feelings comes about because you see a dissipation in multiple political parties, and talk of secession subsided as Northerners, Southerners were determined that the compromise. So what do we say, girls, about the compromises? They are band-aids on a big, huge, gaping wound that is like bleeding, gushing blood. Okay, so slavery is a horrible issue, right? Like Thomas Jefferson said, it's like holding a wolf by the ears. If you hold it, you're holding a wolf, and that's not safe. But if you let it go, what's going to happen? It's going to probably bite you. So if we let slavery go, what's going to happen? We're a mess. The South is so dependent on it. Either way, this issue isn't good. So we need to figure something out. So by having a compromise, you are just putting a Band-Aid on it, and it's going to come to a head, as we know, with the Civil War. Okay, so I'm almost out of time. I'm going to have to do another recording in a second, but I'm just going to go keep talking till the end. This is a great little table that tells you all the